All right, we're going to talk about something that's in most households, most of them that goes unlooked at. And it's hoarding, and it is a disease. This is compulsive hoarding. Whenever you got stuff stacked up in the corners of the houses, clothes, closets full, just full, hall closets, whatever it is, garages, the storage buildings, the extra bedrooms where you can hardly even open the door. This is disease, guys. This disease is no different than my alcoholism and other people's pill problems and other people's whatever else. It's a disease. And this says also known as a hoarding disorder, is a pattern of behavior that is characterized by excessive acquisition and an inability or unwillingness to discard large quantities of objects that cover the living areas of the home and cause significant distress or impairment. I'm going to break this down. It might not with the hoarder, but the one it causes distress and impairment with is the family. It's the other ones, it's the loved one that doesn't have the hoarding disease. It's the kids that see that get confused and they just start throwing their shit everywhere. Compulsive hoarding behavior has been associated with health risk, impaired functioning, economic burden, and adverse effects on friends and family members. And that is the truth. You ain't gonna have no friends come over or family if everything's just full. I mean, I'm serious, and this is a generational thing too. You learn this. When clinically significant enough to impair functioning, hoarding can prevent typical uses of space, enough so that it can limit activities such as cooking, cleaning, moving through the house, and sleeping. It can also put the individual and others at risk of fires, falling, poor sanitation, or other health concerns. Compulsive hoarders may be aware of their irrational behavior, but the emotional attachment to the hoarded objects far exceeds the motive to discard the items. Let's break that sentence down. But the emotional attachment. Let's think about the emotional attachment I had to alcohol. Whenever I drank alcohol, my emotions, guess what? Vanished. All of them did. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, whenever you take something from somebody that's hoarding, they will flip. They'll lose their damn mind. And they will. And it's just, there's no difference than if this is a beer and you take it out of my hands, or let's say if you take this out of somebody's house. It's the same feeling. Researchers have only recently begun to study hoarding, and it was first defined as a mental disorder in the 5th edition of the DSM in 2013. It was not clear whether compulsive hoarding is a separate, isolated disorder, or rather a symptom of another condition, such as OCD. But the current, that's right. So everybody that's like, you got OCD, bipolar and all that, well, there you are too. But the current DSM lists hoarding disorder as both a mental disability and a possible symptom for OCD. Prevalence rates have been estimated at 2% to 5% in adults, though the condition typically manifests in childhood. Do you hear that? With symptoms worsening in advanced age. See, in childhood, they see that. It becomes hereditary. And over time, they'll have it in their heads just like the monarch butterflies. It is driven into the subconscious, and that's how it is. And then let's see... at which point collected items have grown excessive and family members who would otherwise help to maintain and control the levels of clutter have either died or moved away. Hoarding appears to be more common in people with psychological disorders, such as depression, anxiety, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Other factors often associated with hoarding include alcohol dependence, paranoid schizophrenia, and avoidance traits. Let me say that again. Hoarding appears to be more common in people with psychological disorders such as depression, anxiety, and ADHD. So everybody out there that's hoarding, guess what? You're more than likely going to be diagnosed with depressed, anxiety, or ADHD. That's how it is. In 2008, a study was conducted to determine if there is a significant link between hoarding and interference in occupational and social functioning. Hoarding behavior is often severe because hoarders do not recognize it as a problem. Same thing with alcoholics and addicts. It is much harder for behavioral therapy to successfully treat compulsive hoarders with poor insight about their disorder. Results show that hoarders significantly less likely to see a problem in a hoarding situation than a friend or a relative might. No kidding. I never had a drinking problem. This is independent of OCD symptoms, as people with OCD are often very aware of their disorder, which suggests a possible association with OCPD, where the behavior are egocentric. The opposite condition is compulsive decluttering. Content, signs and symptoms: obsessive compulsive disorder, book hoarding, animal hoarding. Mechanism, treatment, medication, counseling. Signs and symptoms: compulsive hoarding in its worst times and forms can cause fires, unsanitary conditions, and other health and safety hazards. Listed below are possible symptoms hoarders may experience. They hold on to a large number of items that most people would consider useless or worthless, such as junk mail, old catalogs, magazines, newspapers, worn-out cooking equipment, things that might be useful for making crafts, clothes that might be worn one day, broken things or trash, freebies or other promotional products. Their home is cluttered to the point where many parts are inaccessible and can no longer be used for intended purposes. For example, beds that cannot be slept in, kitchens that cannot be used for food preparation, tables, chairs, or sofas that cannot be used in dining or sitting, unsanitary bathrooms, tubs, showers, and sinks filled with items that can no longer be used for washing or bathing. Do not allow visitors in, such as family and friends or repair and maintenance professionals, because the clutter embarrasses them. They're reluctant or unable to return borrowed items. Keep the shades drawn that no one can look inside. Get into a lot of arguments with family members regarding the clutter. Wow. And I hadn't even read through this. Let's go over that one more time. Get into a lot of arguments with family members regarding the clutter. Not just that family member that has the hoarding condition, but now you're going to get into it with all the other families because they know what in the hell's going on. And they don't give you no insight about it. Like, hey, we're going to have to try to work on this. But hoarding is a disease. It is. It's a disease. There is no difference in it. For many years, hoarding has been listed as a symptom or a subtype of obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder is a type of anxiety disorder. People with OCD experience unwanted thoughts that incline them to do something repetitively. Some of these behaviors are excessive cleanliness and excessive toothbrushing. The current DSM says that an OCD diagnosis should be considered when blah, blah, blah. The hoarding is driven by fear or of contamination or superstitious thoughts. The hoarding bit, that's nothing. But see, and it says compulsive hoarding does not seem to involve the same neurological mechanisms as more familiar forms of obsessive compulsive disorder and does not respond to the same drugs, which target serotonin. Serotonin! We know what that is, don't we? In compulsive hoarding, the symptoms are presented in the normal stream of consciousness and are not perceived as repetitive or distressing like OCD patients, despite statistics indicating that there is a prevalence of hoarding in 18 to 40% of patients with OCD. So people with OCD, 18 to 40% of you have a problem with hoarding. Wow. Only 5% of compulsive hoarders experience symptoms of OCD. In another study, a sample of 207, blah, 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 that's not good enough because there's only 216. Book hoarding, animal hoarding, diagnosis. And the whole reason I wanted you to hear this is because there's a lot of people I've been working with about hoarding disorders. And people have never addressed their problems in the past. Ever. 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 Right here's treatment. Not only are there significant health risks associated with compulsive hoarding, but scientists are also trying to pinpoint how significant the interference is with occupational and social functioning in a hoarder's daily life. In a pool of compulsive hoarders, 42% found their behavior problematic to 63% of their family and friends who saw their behavior as problematic. Wow. The findings suggest that individuals who hoard may exhibit impaired sensitivity to their own and others' emotions and conversely relate the world around them by forming attachments to possessions rather than to people. Wow, I learned something. So now hoarders would rather become attached with something physical than another human being or a person, so to speak. The findings suggest that who may exhibit impaired lower emotional intelligence among hoarding patients may also impact their ability to discard and organize their possessions. With such detrimental characteristics, comprehensive research has been performed to find a cure. Although this is an ongoing research, no, there ain't. The only way you're going to do it is to get out and talk to people. Medication. Obsessive compulsive disorders are treated with various serotonin, antidepressants, including the triglyceric antidepressant, SSRI medications. With existing drug therapy, OCD symptoms can be controlled but not cured. Several of these compounds, I've blown OCD out of the water. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a commonly implemented therapeutic intervention for compulsive hoarding. As part of a cognitive pattern behavior, the therapist may help the patient to discover why he or she is compelled to hoard. Learn to organize possessions in order to decide what to discard. Develop decision-making skills. Declutter the home during in-home visits by a therapist or professional organizer. Gain and perform relaxation skills. Attend family or group therapy. Let me say that again. Attend family or group therapy. Be open to trying psychiatric hospitalization if the hoarding is serious. Bam! Have periodic visits and consultations to keep a healthy lifestyle. That's exactly right. And the only reason I wanted to do that was because, it's like there's a lot of people that's hoarders. A lot of women, a lot of men too. But seriously, think about that. It's real. Love you.